All right. All right. All right. I'm going to make sure. Been a while since I've streamed, so we're going to wait a couple minutes, let people filter in, but also make sure I have all my settings right and make sure you guys can hear me and all of that fun stuff before we get into the good juicy details of this live stream. It's good to see all of you, by the way. Make sure that... Oh, yeah, looks good, looks good. Loud and clear. Yeah, hey, you want to see something cool that I can do now? MC, you want to see this? Look what I was working on. Look at this. Bang, you're in the bottom left corner of the screen. Pretty sweet, right? Pretty sweet. I'm a little tech savvy every once in a while. All right. Yeah, that's pretty cool, huh? That's pretty cool. I like it. All right, we're just gonna sit here for a minute or two before we get into this. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. What we got? 50 people in here now. Let's see if we can get to 100 before we really get into this. Let me know how you guys are doing. You guys having a good day? You guys having a good weekend? I certainly am blessed to see another day. Get to do what I love here. Yeah, let's. Okay, another person wants to come up on the screen. Look at this. I don't know how to say your name. It's definitely not English. Wojtek. I don't know. I apologize. He says he wants to come on the screen. So look at this. Look at this. Hang on. Maybe. Now it's not working. Come on. Come on. It was just working a second ago. See, now we're in trouble. Now I can't pull your comments on the screen. What the heck? What the heck's going on? All right, we got to fix this. Hang on. We're still letting people file in here. We're up to 75 viewers. Hit the like button for me, by the way. Appreciate all of you. Once we get to about over 100 viewers, we're going to get rolling here. Okay, I got to figure out why you guys' messages all of a sudden are not coming up onto the screen because it was working just a minute ago. Well, this is kind of a bummer, isn't it? We're going to get this figured out. I'll get to all your questions and comments here in just a little bit, and we're going to dive into all this Cleanspark news. Okay. Why would this not be working? See, I haven't streamed in a while. I did it to myself. We're struggling a little bit here. I'm going to get it figured out. Okay, let me just try. And, okay, let's remove this source. Okay. I hope you guys have nowhere to be today because I plan on talking for a while. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube, posted something, so I'm here all day. If you guys have questions, let me have it in the chat section. I'm going to get to everything. I don't have anything better to do today. Okay, let me try and get this chat thing set back up. Get it fixed. Okay. I think what I want to do is take that link and put it here. See, I was bragging about how tech savvy I was, and then I get humbled really quickly. It worked for about 2 minutes, and then it quit working. Is this what I want? Maybe. All right, let's see if... All right, hang on. Let's see if anything pops up on the screen. Yeah, all right, we're back. We fixed the chat pop-up. I hope it stays that way. So MC, look at you. You're back on the screen again. Okay. See, this is what happens when I don't stream for a while. Okay, who said they wanted to come up? Look at this. Boom, you're on the screen now. See, you said show me up. I gotcha. You're on the screen, bottom left corner. Dylan's in the house. Chris is in the house. Dinesh, sorry, I don't know, I'm mispronouncing your name. Aaron, my mod. Love Aaron. He's in the house. Mark Hilmer, Juan, Jake Blake. Okay, Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the purpose of this live stream. We're approaching about 100 people here. Hopefully over time, we can keep adding to that total. Really quick though, man, I'm sore. I worked out for the first time in a long time last night. Oh man, I'm sore. Anyways, you guys want to see something that really, really got me going this morning? Something that really, 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 really got me going this morning? I'm gonna wait until somebody in the chat says, "Yeah, Rex, I want to hear it. What got you going this morning?" All right. So somebody please end this misery and say, "Yeah, Rex, I want to hear what really got you going." Come on. All right. Main stage is in the house. What's up? He says. What's going on? Okay. All right. Here we go. Jake's got me. He says, "Let's get it. What you got going on? What you got going on?" All right. Here we go. Yeah. Now people love it. Maximilian says, "Yes, sir. Want to hear?" Okay, all right. Enough messing around. Let's I didn't mean to put that one on the screen. Let's go ahead and get into this, okay? This is going to be rough. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, but let's go ahead and switch the camera. Here we go. This is what got me going this morning. Good old Winston Churchill. Good old Winston Churchill. His quote. So a little motivation on Saturday today. "You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks." So there's your motivation for that. That's what got me going this morning. You know, think about where you want to go. Think about your goals in life. Think of what you want to accomplish. And along the way, there's going to be so many people in your life, whether you know them or you don't know them, they're going to tell you reasons why you shouldn't accomplish what you want to accomplish. They're going to tell you that you can't accomplish what you want to accomplish. But that's just a distraction. If you throw stones back at those dogs that bark at you, you're never going to get to your destination. So tell me that gets you going. Tell me that gets you going like it got me going, right? I mean, that's some motivation. By the way, go ahead and follow me on X, Rex_finance. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was a pretty good quote. All right, purpose of the live stream. Let's get into it now. There's your Saturday motivation. Again, I have nowhere to be today, so we can stream for a long time. Let me share your comments in the chat, and I'm going to get to all of them. Okay. Cleanspark shareholders, I have one image. Oop, I hit my mic. I have one image for you, and it's this. It's this. Welcome to Mountain City, Tennessee. Welcome to Mountain City, Tennessee. Mountain City, Tennessee. Yeah, so yesterday I broke the news that Cleanspark is just one step away from acquiring a 50-acre parcel of land in Mountain City, Tennessee. 50 acres is fairly large. That has the potential to be one of their biggest campuses. Actually, by sheer number of data centers, Tennessee is actually a bigger part of Cleanspark than Georgia is at the moment. I'm pretty sure that's a fact. This 50-acre parcel of land, the land market value, we're going to look at all this. The value of the land is basically $367,000. And they plan to invest $40 to $50 million building a 100% immersion-cooled mining at the site. So this was fun. I was kind of the one that broke the news. Maybe Cleanspark didn't really want this to become mainstream news yet, but I really wasn't the leaker. You know, I'm just going to ask for forgiveness rather than permission to start talking about this. A local news agency, the Tomahawk, actually put out this article yesterday, and this is how I found out about it. Bitcoin mine proposed for Mountain City. A Bitcoin data center could be coming to Mountain City in a few months, as Mountain City Planning Board members were impressed following an April 24th presentation. Cleanspark Chief Operating Officer Scott Garrison told the planning board he's awaiting approval from the town before buying the land. The planning board gave preliminary approval in March. Garrison told the board at that meeting that Cleanspark could build in 2 months. The proposal would be to build on a flat agricultural 50-acre parcel of land. We'll look at this on Zillow and the satellite view. The land is valued at $367,400. Since Cleanspark didn't have a complete site plan available, the planning board decided not to give full approval. But Garrison said that they need TVA to approve the energy plan, which Mount Electric General Manager Rodney Metcalf said could come by mid-May. So when we think about Cleanspark's going to be reporting earnings here sometime in the month of May, this could be the press release or the piece of news that they share alongside their earnings results. Usually they like to do that, share an update, share an acquisition alongside their earnings release. This could be that acquisition. So if that happens, you heard it here first. Metcalf told the planning board that the Parkdale plant was their biggest revenue source, and he doesn't feel like another manufacturing plant will come to the area. So having Cleanspark become a huge electricity customer can help the area avoid drastic rate increases. And that's the thing. Cleanspark has all these rural locations, rural data centers, whether that's in Georgia, Wyoming, Tennessee, Mississippi, you name it. But Cleanspark actually gets invited to come to these communities, to come to these small towns and set up shop. These communities want them to come because they benefit the local communities. So you have, just as an example, the governor of Gwinnett County in Georgia has worked with Cleanspark, and he really likes what Cleanspark has done. Cleanspark's added a bunch of tax revenue to that county. They have helped develop energy infrastructure for that county. They've helped prevent drastic energy price increases for that county. And it's all very, very good. Cleanspark provided computer technology scholarships to Gwinnett County students. And all of that stuff benefits the local community. They're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in these communities. And as a result of that, you have the mayor of Gwinnett County, as an example, that, all of a sudden he's going to go talk to the mayor of Dalton County, Georgia, and say, well, Cleanspark's done this for us. It's been a very beneficial relationship. And then all of a sudden that Dalton County mayor wants Cleanspark to come to Dalton County, and that's exactly what happened in Georgia. So it's the same thing with these rural locations. It's one of the advantages. Cleanspark doesn't have to ask for permission to come set up shop like many of their competitors have to do. Instead, because of the good stewards they've been, of the relationships they've had in the communities they operate in, good word spreads, and they get invited to come to these communities, invited to set up shop, invited to invest, invited to hire employees and workers. Anyways, getting back to this article, Garrison said, we changed lives, mentioning the biggest data center in Sandersville, Georgia, and the impact it had on the community. There were kids living in cars that are now buying their first house. And he says, if you can plug in your Xbox, we'll teach you how to work. I love it. And one of the major concerns, as always, with Bitcoin mining is the noise. If you guys haven't been to an air-cooled mining facility, it's loud. You hear people tell you that it's loud, and then you're actually at the location and you're like, okay, that's even louder than I anticipated, than I thought it would be. I was at Cleanspark's College Park facility, which is an air-cooled facility, located really close to the Atlanta airport. So fortunately, all the noise that that location creates, it doesn't really matter because the airport is extremely loud. So that's why they can get away with it in College Park. But it's loud. Like, you almost have to wear earmuffs. And it's like, if you're talking to somebody 6 feet away from you, it's really hard to hear them, even if they're shouting or they're raising their voice. Anyways, besides the point. Scott Garrison said this won't be a problem as the latest digital mining technology using tanks of oil eliminates the need for cooling fans. And he says the noise created is equivalent to traffic on US 421 and the Food Line parking lot across from the site. We'll bring the latest and greatest and quietest, he said, of the equipment. And Garrison assured that the oil is used to cool the computers is safe, saying you can dip your finger in it and put it in your mouth. I've actually done that at Cleanspark's Norcross facility. I dipped my finger in that mineral oil and I put it in my mouth, and I'm still alive, 2 years later or whatever it's been. So I can at least back that claim, for 2 years. I don't know if I can back it for 3 years yet, but while disappointed that there wasn't a full site plan ready to approve, Mayor Jerry Jordan said he was excited and couldn't wait to approve the site plan. we can say it looks very promising, the mayor said. So this is basically all but done. I would be very surprised if by the end of May we haven't heard some news on this. 50 acres is a large parcel of land. We'll get into the megawatts, what that could add to their exahash per second, et cetera here in a little bit. What's kind of fun though is I was the one that kind of broke this news on X, and there was an article that was put out by Bitcoin.com this morning regarding it, and the MinerMag.com this morning reporting it. I beat them all. So I'm proud of that. One other piece of news that I think people have missed is if you go into the Mountain City Planning Commission's minutes from their meeting, one of their most recent meetings, they mention how Cleanspark is planning on making a $40 to $50 million investment for a setup in the city. Obviously, with immersion cooling, it's more expensive per megawatt. But that's all. I can tell you so much today, but there's also I can't tell you much until we get an update from the company itself talking about their ability to access megawatts at this 50-acre site and location, and obviously how many mining rigs they want to put into this site or location. But $40 to $50 million is not a small investment. Again, 50 acres. It has the potential to be one of the company's largest mining campuses, which is really, really, really exciting. Let's see. Let's scroll to the top of this article. Scott Garrison here. He's on the left. I've actually met Scott before in person. Great guy. He's the chief operating officer. He's the one that maintains all of these relationships. And it's kind of funny, but if you go to his bio on the Cleanspark management team website, you can actually see that Scott Garrison achieved Class A status with the PGA of America and has opened multiple golf courses throughout the United States before being recruited by IZOD. I'm not a golfer. I'm sorry if I butchered that. IZOD's golf division. So Scott Garrison, back in his day at least, was a professional golfer. This guy can golf, and it sounds silly, but it's true. If you can golf, that in and of itself is such an advantage. So much business gets done on the golf course. You wouldn't believe it. I got to work on my golf game, fellas. You don't want to see me swing a golf club. I can shoot a basketball. I can throw a football. I can do all that, but swinging a golf club is my arch nemesis. I struggle with it. Just interesting tidbit there about Scott. Great guy. Nobody else you'd rather have in that position. Just while I'm here, Taylor Monig, the CTO, one of the smartest guys I have ever met. I love Taylor. He actually watches the channel quite a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's tuned in right now as well. He just got a raise. Yesterday there was an 8K that came out, and I just want to say my 2 cents. He 110% deserved that raise. Cleanspark moving forward is going to focus most of its operations on immersion cooling. And Taylor Monig, he came from TMG Core. I think he holds more patents on immersion cooling technology than anybody else in the world. Very, very smart guy. There's a reason that Cleanspark's immersion sites have had such good results, great efficiency, uptime, all of the above. It's a lot of what Taylor Monig does. So I just want to give my 2 cents there. I've met Taylor before, very, very smart individual. And he deserves every bit of the raise he got yesterday and that 8K filing. So congratulations, Taylor, if you're watching this live stream. You deserve it, absolutely. And if you ever leave Cleanspark, I'm going to be sad. So please don't leave Cleanspark. Let's go ahead and look at this location on Zillow. The address is 178 Rainbow Road, Mountain City, Tennessee. Mountain City it's a town of 2,300 people, I believe, if I'm remembering right. I looked it up last night. It's a 3 stoplight town, very similar to the town I live in. My town has like 7,500 people, so even my town's larger than what Mountain City is. Mountain City's kind of down in the holler between mountains, I guess you could say. But yeah, 50 acres for $367,000. First thing I want to do is I just want to look through these images, and I'll see if I can zoom in just a little bit here to help you guys see it. Okay, these first few images I don't care about. There's some water that runs through the acreage here. This is, now we're getting to what I want to look at. We're looking at the parcel of land here. You can see there's power lines that run right through it. Right above the image here, and also along the other side of the property. So getting access to electricity in megawatts shouldn't be an issue at all. Now, I will say, as we keep scrolling through this looks, it's hard to judge via images or imagery, but this looks a little bit messy, just a little bit messy when it comes to the way the power lines run through this parcel of land. Where's the is that the picture I wanted? Yeah, I think this bottom picture here, I think you guys can see it. You have to look close, but you can see, I believe these are power lines, and it could just be the imagery here, but it looks like these trees are like overgrowing into the power lines. Again, it could just be a field of vision from the picture, but if these trees are on the facility, I probably cut them down. And I don't know, this is really hard because there's power lines or something behind it that aren't connected to this power pole here where my mouse is. They're kind of in the background here. I think those are more power lines, but I don't think that's on the property. I think the power lines that are connected to these power poles here are just right here. But this seems very low to the ground to me as well, and I'm no expert at all. It's just something I've noted. And again, I'd have to stand at this location to really see, but these trees might be a little bit of an issue, and I'm not sure. You might have to check the integrity of those power poles. So just something of note here. I'm not sure. It looks like maybe they just basically chop this up for silage, for hay. It doesn't look like they really grew anything else here. But you can see on the other side of the property, here's the high-rise power poles going through on the other side. These look much more structurally sound. And maybe these are the only power poles that matter to the site. I really don't know. But let's go ahead and look. Do I have to go below the images? No. Let's go ahead and look. Oh, let's go back to the listing. Here we go. Let's go to the satellite. I'm going to go full screen. Let's look at the satellite view. And then let's add the lot lines. So you can see here, this 50-acre lot, it's kind of jagged. There's a lot to it. So it starts down here along Rainbow Road. This is Longhorn Auction, I think, right here. This little cutout. This piece of land is not going to belong to the company if they follow through with this acquisition. It's this right here, and it's all of this right here, and then I would guess this is kind of where these trees are. Might be where the water runs through. It looks like. So I'm not sure what they'll do there, but yeah, both sides of the creek or the river, whatever it is, they will own. So here's your high-rise power poles along the left side of the property. There's one here, and I was watching Sebastian on YouTube last night. He did a good job of showing this. So I'm gonna give him the credit. If you follow these power lines up. I might have to zoom out. Oh, here we go. Here's another one. Okay, I lost it. There's another one. You basically follow them up to this substation right here. So there's a substation very, very close to this 50-acre parcel of land. So that's where they're going to be drawing their power from, right here. Just a little bit north and a little bit west of their parcel of land that they more than likely are going to purchase. here. So based on my first guess, and it's really tough to know what they're going to do with a piece of ground that needs a lot of work. They're probably going to have to chop down trees. They're probably going to have to move some dirt. Really, really hard to know how big this campus could get. Maybe they're going to, just put their campus here in the upper part, and then this bottom left corner, they're going to build out their own substation, or maybe they're going to buy, thinking very long term, maybe they're going to buy small nuclear modular reactors, their own on-site power generation. It could go down here. I have no idea. That's just my brainstorming that's going on. But my first guess, I don't think I finished saying this, is that this would add 7 to 15 exahash per second to their total mining capacity. We know that Cleanspark's going to reach 50 exahash per second by the end of the second quarter. But beyond that, they have not communicated any growth plans. So again, I wouldn't be surprised, just based on the news we have, if this acquisition is announced alongside their earnings release in the coming weeks. And this would give us visual, on growth past that 50 exahash per second. Interestingly, a lot of people don't know this. But Cleanspark has a call option, or several call options, still available to them with Bitmain. I have it in my notes here. Let's see. The call options give them an option to purchase an additional 50,000 S21 immersion rigs for $21.50 per terahash, which would get them to 63 exahash per second. So the mining rigs they're talking about, I believe, are these ones here. They're not the Hydros, the S21 Plus Hydros. They're the S21 XP Immersions that are selling on the market right now for $24.56. I'm fairly certain I'm correct when I say that. So the call options give them the ability to purchase 50,000 of these units for $21.50 per terahash, rather than the current market price of $24.56 per terahash. So if you do the math on that, to buy 50,000 of these rigs, it would cost $368.4 million to buy 50,000 of these rigs at market price. But with their call option at $21.50 per terahash, they would only pay $322.5 million. Now, to get that call option, they paid a one-time 10% fee on that $322.5 million of $32.25 million. That was kind of the premium they paid on the call option they received. So if you bake that into the math, they're basically, if they exercise this call option, they would save $13.65 million. So entering into this call option agreement would end up being a great business move for the company. So when I say that I think at this new site, over time it could reach 7 to 15 exahash per second, it kind of fits into the mold of the call option they have outstanding with Bitmain for 50,000 additional immersion units. That would amount to about 13 exahash per second of mining rigs. So is this just coincidence? Maybe, but it seems to kind of fit the bill. We're gonna have to keep an eye on it. The interesting thing about this call option is they only have until July 26th to exercise that call option. So it's another thing that I can almost assure you we're going to hear an update on during the earnings call. So we might get two pieces of news. We might get we're purchasing this Mountain City facility, 50 acres of land, but also B, at the same time, we're exercising our call option to buy 50,000 additional S21 XP immersion mining rigs. Now, that's the simple thing. There's another, I don't know what you call it, another fork in the road here that I think Cleanspark is probably considering at the moment. you see, Bitmain every year has a worldwide conference where they announce new machinery. And this year it just so happens that they moved up that worldwide conference to right around, well, just slightly after the Bitcoin conference in Vegas. So to me, and Matt Schultz said this in his fireside chat with Dow Trading the other day, Dow Research the other day, that signals that Bitmain probably is about to launch a new generation of ASIC mining rig. And I think I 100% agree with that thesis because competition is coming. And right now, Bitmain has a massive, I would call it a monopoly on the space. Sure, you have Ardanine. Sure, you have MicroBT. Sure, you have all these, there's several other manufacturers of Bitcoin mining rigs, but I think, off the top of my head, Bitmain owns like 80% of the total Bitcoin mining rig market. And they have a fat margin on the mining rigs they sell because they have a monopoly, and they've for so long been the best at what they do. You look at companies that use alternate manufacturers, and you'll see that their hash rate realization is much lower than it should be. They're sitting around 85% realization, 90% realization, whereas a company like Cleanspark that uses they have some other models, but for the most part, their operations, I would say, are 95 to 98% Bitmain rigs. Their hash rate realization is like 97, 98% consistently. So that just shows you that these other manufacturers still have some issues, still have some kinks to work out, but competition is actually a very good thing because it means Bitmain's going to release an even more efficient model and probably reduce their price to keep their monopoly on the space. They have room to cut their prices because their margin is so fat right now. And you also, you have all the tariffs. And right now, I think Bitcoin mining rigs are classified as computers, so they're exempt from reciprocal tariffs. But even that adds risk to the equation. So there's going to be more and more interest in manufacturing Bitcoin mining rigs stateside in the United States of America. But that too actually probably benefits the Bitcoin miners that purchase Bitmain rigs. Competition and tariffs are probably a good thing because Bitmain, they have the ability to eat any tariff in their profit margin, and they have the ability to cut prices to maintain the huge monopoly they have on the space. So if anything, Bitcoin mining rigs, per unit of efficiency per unit of performance should keep getting cheaper over time. And that's exciting to think about. But that's something that I think Cleanspark is probably weighing as well. Well, Bitmain sped up, they brought forward this worldwide conference to the summer months, which means they're probably going to have a hardware drop coming, which means that as Bitmain's largest customer, we might be able to negotiate rolling the call options we have on the S21 XP immersion rigs into whatever latest and greatest rig that they come out with during the summer months, as long as that takes place before July 26th, when Cleanspark has to exercise or sell the call option they have on these mining rigs. So there's a lot of play here, a lot at play, a lot to think about. Keep putting your questions and comments in the chat. I'll get to them here very, very soon. I don't have anywhere to be. I'll be here all day as long as the questions keep coming. Thank you all for showing up, by the way. Hit the like button for me. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to make sure in my notes I've talked about everything that I want to talk about in regards to this acquisition. There's a few other Cleanspark items that I want to touch on briefly. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything in regards to this acquisition. Very, very confident that this is probably going to happen. We'll probably hear about it in the upcoming earnings report. 50 acres is a lot that opens the door to... It's just going to depend on how many megawatts they can get their hands on, but it has the ability or the potential to become one of their larger mining campuses that they have. So a lot of reason to be bullish. Now, let's go ahead, and I put out some pretty good stuff regarding Cleanspark on my X page recently. So if you don't follow me on X, be sure you change that. Let's start with this tweet here. And this is something I want to talk about. So you guys have probably noticed, and I can zoom in on this tweet as well. You guys have probably noticed that the credit markets are starting to open up for the Bitcoin miners, where, Cleanspark has signed a line of credit with Coinbase. Riot just announced a line of credit with Coinbase, and there's two others, I think, that also signed lines of credit with Coinbase. So credit markets are opening up. These lines of credit they're collateralized by Bitcoin that these companies hold on their balance sheets. So one thing that I don't think the markets are paying attention to, and I think the markets really should pay attention to, is the fact that Cleanspark is the only company that is exclusively using self-mined Bitcoin as collateral for this line of credit, for the credit markets, for the debt markets. All of these other companies, for the most part, are collateralizing. They're putting up their Bitcoin as collateral, but the problem is the Bitcoin they're putting up as collateral, at least partially, was purchased with already borrowed money. So they're putting Bitcoin up for collateral that was purchased with borrowed money in order to borrow even more money. That is probably not sustainable, and that's a very, very big deal. That Cleanspark, they're exclusively using their self-mined Bitcoin as collateral. This Bitcoin that sits on their balance sheet, over 12,000 Bitcoin today, worth $1.3 billion, whatever it is. I think I screwed up the math on that. Let me see. 12,000 times 94,000. Okay, no, I was right. About $1.3 billion of Bitcoin sitting on their balance sheet. All of that exclusively self-mined. None of that Bitcoin was purchased with borrowed capital, whereas all the other companies are using Bitcoin that was purchased with borrowed money as collateral to some degree to borrow even more money, which, again, I don't think is sustainable. And beyond that, so there's two buckets. You have the Bitcoin miners that took out that convertible debt to go buy spot Bitcoin. Well, they're using, Bitcoin, as I've said, that was purchased with borrowed money to borrow even more money. But the other bucket is mining companies that don't have a HODL, that sell all of their production to invest in HPC and AI, for example. Those companies, the non-HODLers, don't have access to this capital at all. They don't have the access to Coinbase's line of credit, which is a significant competitive disadvantage for those companies. Cleanspark's the only company that is outside of those two buckets, where all of the Bitcoin they have was not purchased with borrowed money. It was self-mined, and they have a HODL balance, and their balance sheet is pretty healthy right now. Very, very big advantage for Cleanspark there. And I just wanted to touch on that here in this video quick as well. Now, another tweet that I want to focus on, again, follow me on X if you don't already. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. This is what I want to focus on. It just so happens, and I'm not going to read you this whole tweet. It's kind of a long tweet. You can go to my profile and read through it if you want to. Too long didn't read is the companies that accounted for the vast majority of growth in hash rate amongst the public Bitcoin mining companies last year have, outside of Cleanspark, have all announced either slowing of hash rate growth or all out pauses on their hash rate growth. So the people that were the most confident in Bitcoin last year and growing out Bitcoin mining operations, well, 6 months later, 12 months later, whatever it's been, have decided, oh, this isn't the business model I thought it was. I'm not as excited about Bitcoin anymore. So I'm just going to pause my growth, and I'm going to slow my growth dramatically. That's a huge deal. That is a huge deal for a company like Cleanspark. That's the time to grow. When everybody else is just sitting back, they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to keep growing anymore. That's the time where Cleanspark can take advantage and increase their overall ownership of the global Bitcoin network. Back when Cleanspark first got into the space, they were a joke. People made fun of them. Nobody took them seriously. And fortunately, I was an investor back then. So it's treated me very well. But over time, Cleanspark's total ownership of the Bitcoin network hash rate has grown to exceed 5% of the total network. And if all of these other, if the companies that were most excited and most giddy to grow last year, all of a sudden are deciding not anymore, not this year, that takes current and future hash rate offline, and it opens the door for a company like Cleanspark, who is a step away from buying 50 acres of land in Mountain City, Tennessee. It opens the door for them to continue to grow their ownership of the network, which comes with its own advantages. And so I kind of summarize here. Cleanspark's growth seems to be getting easier, and reaching escape velocity means various continuing small improvements of efficiencies over time. And at the bottom, I say, people think I'm crazy, but this is a multi-year, dare I say multi-decade investment for me. This isn't a trade, a lottery ticket, or a get-rich-quick scheme. I may be the only person on X that plans to hold and not trade, but I'm okay with that. When you start thinking about what Cleanspark could become in 10 years, it gets hard to push the sell button. Right now, there's way too much focus on trading in and out of Cleanspark stock or out of the Bitcoin mining stocks. Way too much focus on that. And I'll even take it a step further. I see all of the time, and I'm sure as I go through the comments, there's going to be numerous comments about, well, Cleanspark, they're getting shorted to death. 27% short interest, 28% short interest. Everybody is focused on the short-term dynamics of the stock, and they're forgetting about the company and what the company could become and achieve fundamentally or operationally. They don't care. People don't care about that right now. But I do, because this ultimately, Cleanspark could become a huge company. We're already seeing Bitcoin become bigger and bigger every single year. And that's not just the price of Bitcoin, but that's what Bitcoin accomplishes. Getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year, every day. And people are so focused on, I'm going to buy low or sell high, and then they end up buying high and selling low, and they're looking at all their charts. I mean, you just search on X, CLSK, and the first 20 results will be charts, price charts, trading charts on Cleanspark, and I don't think that's at all how we should be looking at this. Not at all. I know historically Bitcoin miners have been extremely volatile, but you know what happens as an industry learns, and as we're very early along the learning curve of Bitcoin, less bankruptcies happen. Less bad debt deals get signed. Companies get, they learn from their past. You know, we think back to 2021. So many companies got ahead of their skis. So many companies ended up going bankrupt because they got ahead of their skis. You know, in a young technology, as it develops and becomes more stable and it becomes more adopted, things start to level off. The volatility starts to decrease a little bit. You think of FTX. Is something like FTX going to happen again? It's possible, but the odds of it are so much lower now because it happened and because we've learned from it. So as the risk gets pulled out of Bitcoin, the risk also gets pulled out of the Bitcoin mining companies. And I don't think that's something people are paying attention to at all. And maybe I'm wrong about this. I certainly hold the non-consensus view here. There's not very many people out there that are focused on the fundamentals and the operation of the company and what this company could become over the next 10 years. When I think that's where all of the money is going to be made and what this company accomplishes over the next decade. So I don't know. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm open to different thoughts and opinions about it. But I don't know. The more I research Cleanspark, the more I get excited about it and what they can accomplish. So one other tweet I want to highlight here before I get to the Q&A. Make sure you put your comments and your questions there. I'll get to all of them. And maybe there's a couple things I want to highlight. Yeah, there are a couple. First one here. This is very important. Spreadsheets made available to my paid monthly members. I'm entirely self-funded. I'm entirely independent. I don't take sponsorships. Other YouTubers, other people on X, they take payment from these mining companies. I don't do that, so I rely on this community, you guys watching this. So I greatly appreciate you tuning in today. But I also even more so appreciate the people that go the extra step and join the membership and support me monthly and what I do monthly. So my Cleanspark spreadsheet and a lot of other perks are involved with that membership. You can just type into Google RexFinance Patreon and it'll pop up. If you're on a computer right now, there's going to be a join button located right next to the subscribe button. You can hit that as well. It'll get you into the Discord and get you all the perks. But besides that, Bitcoin is back above Cleanspark's Q1 all-in cost per coin. So the all-in cost is every expense of the company included. So that includes stock-based compensation, that includes depreciation, that includes everything at the company. Their all-in cost to mine, I'll just enlarge this image, in Q1 was $88,000. So that's including depreciation, stock-based comp, every single expense of the company. Bitcoin itself has reached levels above their Q1 all-in cost to mine a Bitcoin, which makes the investment thesis very, very easy to understand. Whereas with, if you're doing research on these companies or these potential investments and you're finding that their all-in costs exceed the price of or the value of one Bitcoin, it makes very little sense to say, I'm going to buy that stock, I'm going to buy that company. So obviously we need to watch hash price and things like that. But this is just one of the basic things you can watch. This is a big deal that Bitcoin is back above all expenses at the company considered their all-in cost to mine a Bitcoin. Now, if we strip out stock-based compensation and we strip out depreciation, their cash costs, so cash leaving the company to pay the bills per Bitcoin is around $52,500. So very, 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 very positive development there. And again, the company recently achieved escape velocity with its efficiencies and its production and its operations, where they just recently announced a pivot to, instead of holding on to 100% of the Bitcoin they mine, they're going to start to sell a portion of the monthly Bitcoin that they mine. So in order to cover, and I've done the math on this, in order to cover their operational costs every month, they're probably going to have to sell around 60% to 70% of their monthly Bitcoin production just to cover the operational costs of the company. And then they'll keep the extra 30 or 40% and continue to add to their total balance. They also recently announced, and I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm really excited about it, and I don't think, this is another thing I don't think people are paying enough attention to. They announced their Bitcoin treasury management team, whatever. I don't know what the exact terminology is behind it, but they announced that that has officially been launched, and they've officially moved 1,300 Bitcoin into yield generation mode, and even just getting 4% return annually on 1,300 Bitcoin is an additional $4 to $5 million that goes to the bottom line of the company. 100% margin, $4 to $5 million that can be used to offset other costs, other expenses at the company. So the easiest way to think about this, over time, it could morph into, getting paid to provide liquidity to ETFs, lending out Bitcoin to, let's use Fidelity as an example, so that they can try and arbitrage a trade at the end of the stock market trading day. Things like that, that could be also where Cleanspark earns a little bit of yield on their total balance. But more so, just with them announcing they're going to fund their operations more with their production, they're going to operate their company like an adult, like a mature company does, rather than continuing to dilute shareholders and not being clear with where they're going to spend that money. Well, let's just use our operations to pay for, or let's use our production to pay for the operations, because we can do that now. We've reached escape velocity. It's another thing that I think lifts the floor of Cleanspark over time and takes risk out of the equation for investors. Escape velocity, the fact that they can fund their operations via their production, and they'll still have more at the end of the day that they can add to their HODL balance, or they can sell to buy an additional tranche of mining rigs, or They can buy a 50-acre parcel of land in Mountain City, Tennessee. It's all very, very exciting stuff. The way they're going to initially earn yield via this treasury team is they're going to forecast, okay, for the month of May, we're going to spend, all figurative, obviously, we're going to spend $100 million, whether that's mining rigs, whether that's infrastructure, whatever it is, we're going to spend $100 million. We know that that's going to be that's our forecasted CapEx for the month of May. If we know that and we want to finance it via selling some Bitcoin, well, we can sell call options we can sell out of the money call options where we know that we're going to have to sell Bitcoin to fund our CapEx for the month. So why not sell some call options, earn some premium on that call option? If it doesn't get exercised, well, we just add that premium to our balance sheet via investment returns, and that benefits shareholders all in all. And at the end of the day, you still make more money than just selling spot Bitcoin. Or you sell call options, out of the money call options. Bitcoin rises, the call options get exercised, and boo-hoo, you sell your Bitcoin at a higher price than you would today if you sold it for spot. So that's where they're going to get some return via this treasury management team. They're going to forecast their CapEx, and they're going to use the options chain, essentially, selling calls, selling puts. Maybe they'll eventually buy puts and buy calls. So that's where it's going to start. Over time, it's going to morph into something even bigger and better than that, I think. But they're just, as they've said, they're going to take a crawl, walk, run approach with it. They're very much so in the crawl stage right now. The crawl stage could be 12 months. It could be 6 months. It could be 16 months. I don't know. But over time, this could be such an advantage for shareholders. If they took all 12,000 of their Bitcoin and earned a 4% yield on it, that would amount to, if you do the math, over $100 million of additional income for shareholders at the end of the day. Now, would they ever do that? Would they ever put all of their total balance at risk? Probably not. But that just kind of gets your mind going as to what could potentially happen. So you might ask, why would a company like Cleanspark choose to start, if they want to buy a 50-acre parcel of land in Mountain City, Tennessee, why would they choose to sell Bitcoin all of a sudden if they believe so strongly in Bitcoin moving forward? I was thinking through this for hours yesterday. There's so many different there's so many different dynamics at play. But essentially, to invest $40 to $50 million in immersion cooling, and if you purchase the 50-acre parcel of land in Mountain City, Tennessee, you could sell, what would that be, about 300 Bitcoin to finance that investment of $40 to $50 million. And let's just do the math here. I don't want to tell you something that's not true. So let's just go $50 million and divide it by, it's hard to think while I'm also talking on YouTube. $50 million investment and divide it by $94,000 per coin. Okay, so you would actually sell about 500 Bitcoin if you wanted to fully finance this investment. So from here, you'd have to do the math. How fast do you get the new mining operation or data center up and running? What happens to network difficulty? All of those things play into this, so it's very, very hard to forecast. But over time, you should be able to add more Bitcoin to your balance sheet, back to your balance sheet, than you sold off to finance the investment. So you're selling 500 Bitcoin today, but hopefully, if these mining rigs, their useful life is 3 years. For the immersion rigs, I wouldn't be surprised if it trends back in the direction of even 4 years of a useful life. That investment should return you more Bitcoin to the balance sheet than you're selling off to finance that investment. Obviously, that's the way it has to be. Otherwise, you wouldn't make that investment. But obviously, you also have to consider the dollar value of the Bitcoin you're selling. Well, if Bitcoin crashes, Yeah, you're going to mine more Bitcoin at the end of the day because difficulty is going to drop, but the Bitcoin is going to be worth less. So there's a lot of, you can see there's a lot of dynamics at play, very, very, very hard to model and forecast. You have to create several different models, several different forecasts, which I'm sure Cleanspark is doing. And they wouldn't make these moves if they weren't calculated, if they didn't know what they're doing. Historically, Cleanspark has been very good at accretively growing, finding accretive acquisitions for shareholders that add value to shareholders. The thought process with the line of credit obviously is, yeah, it's collateralized by Bitcoin, but that way, you know, I post my Bitcoin as collateral and I can draw down $200 million without selling the Bitcoin. The problem with selling the Bitcoin is then you make yourself liable for taxes on that Bitcoin, which a lot of the Bitcoin Cleanspark holds right now has a lot of capital gains. So the tax bill wouldn't be fun. So there's going to be I think moving forward, there's going to be a lot of this stuff. You know, the 50-acre parcel of land they're going to purchase and the related $40 to $50 million investment, that's going to be financed, in my opinion, by Bitcoin-backed debt. That just seems like the most obvious answer right now. And a company like Cleanspark, who owns all of the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, that's self-mined all the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, that didn't purchase any Bitcoin with already borrowed funds, they have massive access to. You might have noticed Cleanspark's line of credit with Coinbase is $200 million, whereas Riot, I think it's this Riot blockchain, Riot platforms, whatever it is, Riot, you know, they have 60, 70% more Bitcoin on their balance sheet, but they were only able to draw down $100 million of a line of credit with Coinbase. Why would that be? Maybe Riot, maybe they were presented the $200 million option, and I just don't know that. But in my opinion, with these lines of credit, you're probably going to take what you can get. Riot was only offered $100 million line of credit for a Bitcoin-backed line of credit, and yet they have 60 to 70% more Bitcoin on their balance sheet than Cleanspark has. And Cleanspark had a $200 million Bitcoin-backed line of credit offered to them. Why would that be? It's because of what we just talked about. All of the Bitcoin sitting on Cleanspark's balance sheet is self-mined. They didn't acquire that Bitcoin using borrowed money. So it's not Bitcoin that was purchased using borrowed money that they're using to borrow even more money. That's kind of a risk to lenders. That's a risk to Coinbase. You know, people say, especially with MicroStrategy, well, there's 0% chance that MicroStrategy is ever going to be liquidated. To that I say bullcrap. At the end of the day, if you have a convertible note, sure, you can sell shares to pay back the principal in the case that MicroStrategy stock doesn't rise above the conversion premium. Yeah, you can repay that by selling shares, but you know what happens? You know what happens is there's such a lack of demand for your shares in the public markets that it's impossible to sell enough shares to raise enough money to pay back this debt. In that scenario, MicroStrategy does get liquidated. If public companies could just sell more shares to pay back their debt, no companies would ever go bankrupt. So when you have these so-called experts on X talking about MicroStrategy, they're never going to get liquidated. There's zero risk to what they do. It's complete hog water. It's complete bullcrap, and they're selling you a lie. And we need to be better than that when it comes to the Bitcoin space on social media, in my opinion, because you're subjecting people to risks that exist that you're acting like don't exist, and to that you're doing a major disservice to the people that follow you, right? And that's what happens in public company bankruptcies when they're forced to liquidate their assets. They're publicly listed, but there's literally not enough demand for shares that they can sell enough additional shares into the markets to pay their bills, to pay back their convertible debt. That is a possibility out there. That's a possibility that so many people act like isn't reality. So that's partially why, in my opinion, Cleanspark was offered double the line of credit that Riot was offered. Yet Riot has 60 to 70% more Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So it's all of these things that make me believe there is no second best right now to Cleanspark. Now, I think I said there was one other tweet I wanted to highlight, and this is kind of a long stream, so thank you all for tuning in. We're coming up on an hour here. I'll be here all day. If the questions keep coming, keep putting them in the chat. I'm going to get to them in just a little bit. Okay, here's the last tweet I wanted to focus on. Less important, but just another thing to think about. Cleanspark has never looked for an escape or considered leaving. They don't partially invest or partially commit to what they do. Management teams that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out create stakeholders that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out. This includes employees, investors, and creditors that are 1 foot in, 1 foot out, which sets the stage for a company and stock that underperforms because nobody is performing up to their potential. Cleanspark has kept their nose to the grindstone with 2 feet fully in and 110% confidence in what they do. That sets the stage for a company and stock that outperforms. It's early, but Cleanspark is separating itself from the pack. So when you look at Cleanspark's operations, let's not kid ourselves here. Cleanspark operationally, sure. Iron, for example, has a lower cost of mining Bitcoin, but other than that, operationally, most iron bulls wouldn't dispute this either. Cleanspark operationally is the best in the space. Do you really think a company in this space that has the best operations isn't subject to other companies in the space trying to poach their employees? I can about guarantee you other companies have approached different Cleanspark employees and said, hey, come to our company, do what you did at Cleanspark, and we'll pay you more than Cleanspark pays you. But we haven't seen any labor turnover for Cleanspark. Again, it's because Cleanspark is 2 feet in. Everybody believes in the common agenda. They believe in what they're trying to accomplish. They believe in what they're trying to do. So nobody wants to leave the company. It's a family dynamic. We just talked earlier how Taylor Monig, you can look at the 8K yesterday. Taylor Monig, the CTO of the company, Chief Tech Officer, he just got a raise yesterday. But you know why that is? It's because other companies are trying to poach Taylor Monig. Guaranteed. It's because Taylor Monig has received other offers from other companies. Does Taylor want to leave? I don't think so. But yeah, Cleanspark has to pay these people. If operationally the company's going to perform better than any other company in the space, it just has to be done. Okay, I think I'm pretty much through all of what I wanted to go through today. I'm sure as I get into the Q&A session, there's going to be more things that pop to my mind. And as I answer your questions. So again, if you're still tuned in, I appreciate it. Make sure you put your comments and your questions in the chat. I'm going to get to everything. So let me switch back to the face cam here. And here we go. Okay, let's scroll back to the top. Okay, here we go. First question. Doesn't get me... Any thoughts on Bitfarms and their new trajectory and pivot from Paraguay? I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on Bitfarms. They're just kind of grouped into every other company right now that's looking for an escape, looking for an out, a way to get out of Bitcoin mining, halting any growth in their hash rate. You guys know my opinions on HPC AI. I just don't think the numbers don't show it. The ROI is not better in HPC AI, and I can go on a tangent about that. Maybe I will in a little bit. But HPC AI, you're getting every company that has an HPC AI arm right now has a massive ATM program active right now, diluting you. And they're selling you a pipe dream so they can sell more shares on the public markets. And I hope you guys can see that. So I don't want to go into my HPC AI tangent yet. It's still early in the day. Maybe later we will. Orun says, this is terrible news. It's going to lead to more dilution and share price falling. No, it's not. The company has zero plans for additional dilution near term. They don't even have an ATM active right now. They've said that they're going to finance their operations through their monthly production and through their Bitcoin HODL, whether that's Bitcoin-backed debt, whatever it is. They've communicated to the markets that they don't have any plans to dilute down at prices that we're seeing today when valuations are this low for their company and other companies in the space. And Iron has a $1 billion ATM. I can guarantee they're hitting that every single day of the week because they need the capital. That's the other thing with these HPC AI. See, I'm going on my tangent. Said I wouldn't. But that's the other thing with these HPC AI moves is it's dramatic capex. And when AI HPC was all the hype, they communicated plans to the markets that they have not been able to achieve, and they've gone too far in their word by selling shares on that hype, by hyping up the markets about HPC AI, that they, if Bitcoin appreciates again, continues to appreciate in value, they're not going to be able to go back on their word and say, never mind, don't want to do HPC AI, I'm back to Bitcoin mine. No. That would hurt their integrity. That would hurt the management team's integrity. They cannot go back on their word at this point. So it's another thing, benefits Cleanspark's stock more than likely if Bitcoin continues to do well, and it hurts the other companies that were committing massive capex to HPC AI when the markets couldn't get their hands on enough of it. Grizzly Bull says, when will Cleanspark outperform everyone else? I think we're seeing it. I think we've seen the start of it. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. These are just my own thoughts and opinions, but I think 2025 and 2026 it's going to be a very, very exciting time for Cleanspark shareholders. And again, I'm focused on years down the road. I'm focused on a decade down the road, what this company could become. So I'm not necessarily concerned with Cleanspark outperforming in the near term. I think over the long term, they're going to be the best play. JR says, what happened to their clean energy niche? I'll just say how it is. Back when all these companies were talking about clean energy, that used to be all the buzz, was clean energy. It wasn't HPC AI, but it was clean energy. And if you had clean energy and you talked about clean energy, everybody would come buy your stock. Now, is clean energy important? Yes. And arguably today, there's more money real money going into clean energy and developing clean energy projects and renewable energy projects because we need it than what was going into clean energy 3 or 4 years ago when it was being talked about. And it's the exact thing that's going to happen with this AI stuff. In my opinion, AI is not new. Don't kid yourself. AI isn't new. The AI that exists today has been around for years, if not more than a decade. And it's been a slow churn, slow growth in AI and what it can accomplish and what it means for our economy and our productivity enhancement. It's been a slow growth. What has changed that all of a sudden AI is just going to make this massive leap? Give me an example of AI that exists today that didn't exist 5 years ago. Yeah, we're getting excited about robots. Okay. Maybe that's your angle, but this generative AI stuff or these companies that analyze big data, that's what we used to call it. We used to call it big data. Okay, we used to call it big data, and now it's just been rebranded into the buzzword AI and HPC. No, and if you want to know the truth, I shouldn't call it the truth. It's just my opinion, but it makes sense. AI moving forward isn't going to happen in remote data centers, remote centralized data centers. That's for A, safety and security, but also B, latency. Latency is a poison to what AI is trying to accomplish. We're trying to enhance our productivity, enhance our efficiencies. How can you do that? Making latency as minimal as possible. So what's the future in my opinion? This is why I invest in a company, One Stop Systems, ticker symbol OSS. The future in my opinion is ruggedized mobile data centers at the edge and pair that with on-site power generation. That's what One Stop Systems does. They bring that remote data center, they ruggedize it, mobilize it, and put it at the spot of operation, at the spot of production. That's where the returns on AI are, where latency is as low as it gets. Let's see. Sphinx says the too long didn't read as this isn't going to move the stock anytime soon. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. I can't guarantee anything. What a deal. All that nice land for $360,000. I mean, and then you say, are those houses? I see legal challenges coming. So I'm guessing you're a skeptic of this. I grew up on a farm. I'm a 4th generation farmer. That's pretty much, I would view that as a good deal for 50 acres of land. nowadays, if I were to go out and want to start my own farming business, to buy just a quarter section, I'm forking out over $1 million. It's impossible. So land is just expensive. Let's see. I think Kokanee says, I think the miners are done, maybe a 2x from here. We'll see. I think the future is much brighter than that. You're telling me if Bitcoin goes from $94,000 to $200,000 that miners are only going to 2x? No, man, no. Go Navy said, is this bullish for Cleanspark? In my opinion, yes. This is just a further advancement of their strategy and what they're trying to do as the company. Adi says, who is bull on Cleanspark? I'm a bull. I'm probably the biggest bull on X or on YouTube when it comes to Cleanspark. So, yeah. Let's see. Rob says, tell the management team to sell the jet to buy more miners. Rob, what you don't realize is that would not purchase very many mining rigs, and Cleanspark has already seen positive ROI on this jet purchase. I don't need to talk about it. They've talked about it themselves. If you're just going to keep focusing on a private jet, there's nothing I can do about it. But that's the fact of the matter. The PJ has had a positive impact for the company, saving money when it comes to taxes, saving time. It allows the management team to work much more efficiently for shareholders. It's been positive. Grizzly says, holding Cleanspark past the bull market is ridiculously bad risk management. Grizzly, couldn't you say that about any stock in the stock market? Holding it past the bull market is ridiculously bad risk management. The problem with your thesis there is you can't predict what the markets are going to do. I called this out 2 years ago. I said, guys, the 4-year Bitcoin cycle is dead. It is dead. And people clowned on me. But the 4-year Bitcoin cycle has absolutely been proven dead. The problem with any quote-unquote perfectly predictable market is if it's perfectly predictable, people are going to front-run the top and they're going to front-run the bottom, which renders it perfectly unpredictable. There's no such thing as a perfectly predictable market. So Grizzly, tell me exactly when you should sell Cleanspark. When the bull market ends, you should sell. Well, when's the bull market going to end? I think the bull market could go on. Right now, actually, we've experienced a bear market. So we just potentially started a new bull market. How long does this bull market last? Was it ridiculously bad risk management to hold on to my Cleanspark shares through that bear market that just happened? No, I'm sitting just fine. So I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying there. Rob says, can you explain why management or insiders have not been buying? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. If I were them, I would go out and buy shares on the open market. The problem is, when they're in possession of material non-public information, such as potentially buying a 50-acre parcel of land, they can't go out into the open markets and buy or sell. The thing with them selling shares, which has been made a huge deal of, is they were part of trading plans, 10b5-1 trading plans, where 6 months ahead of time, they said, well, just as an example, with a 10b5-1 trading plan, it's April right now. Say, okay, what I would do is say, October 15th, I'm going to sell 1,000 shares of Cleanspark. That's what they're doing. And the reason a 10b5-1 trading plan exists is because to take that, it's to take that potential for trading on insider information out of the equation, because you're setting that trade up to happen way into the future when it's impossible to know exactly what's going to be happening. And that's what they did with those sells. Now, could they go out and buy shares using a 10b5-1 trading plan? Yes, they could. But obviously they're not doing that. So the management team has already subjected themselves to their net worths are going to swing wildly with what the stock price does. So increasing their exposure to the company probably isn't in the best financial interest. Just from an over concentration point of view. Those are just my few thoughts on it. Let's see. Anything else I should get to here? Okay, here we go. Roy says, I talked about this earlier. Are you worried about the high short interest in the stock? No. Why would I worry about people short selling a company that I believe in? It doesn't matter. The best thing that happens is short selling, because a short seller they're forced buyers of your stock. They're forced buyers of your company at some point in the future. And it's just a short-term trading dynamic. Are short sellers hampering down the stock price in the short term? Maybe. But the other piece to that is, well, institutional ownership is higher than it ever has been before, which should be offsetting some of that short interest that has come into the stock. So, there's so much focus on charts and so much focus on short interest. I could care less. Bring it on. Let's see. Kyle says, hey, Rex, you said Cleanspark's 2 feet in and are involved in what they do. Didn't Cleanspark start as a software energy company that pivoted to mining Bitcoin because there's more profit to be made? Yeah, that's true. They did do that. They actually more specifically, they were a microgrid company. Let's see. Try Eat says 10% of their profits are still from their original business. I don't think that's true anymore. They've pretty much completely divested of that. Mainstage says, do you think their professional trading desk will mean they'll occasionally buy sold Bitcoin back? Yeah, there's potential for that, depending on if their options get exercised and whatnot. Yeah, there's potential for them to buy some of their sold Bitcoin back. It would have to be the right market and the right timing for it. So I would say yes. That's likely. Let's see. 4 a.m. Sports Talk says, I love your channel and your thing. I wanted to get your opinion on decentralized network of the crypto ICP. I am very bullish. Just wanted your take. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what you're talking about. I don't know really what ICP is. So I'll do some homework on that this evening. X-Ray says, the funniest part is Mara only charters heavy jets. They spend exponentially more on those charters than Cleanspark does per year on their jet. Exactly, X-Ray. Every mining company uses private travel to some degree, and it just actually makes sense for Cleanspark to own the jet, own the travel, write off some of the write-off. It's a tax write-off for them, the things they can do with it, and they can put it into a charter pool where they can see some revenue and income from other companies that might use it via the charter pool. Sana says, what are your thoughts on Core Scientific? I think they're the most legit HPC AI play out there. I think there's more competition than people realized, and you have to be very, very good at what you do in order to actually see credit-worthy demand come into your HPC AI business. Core Scientific has been one of the companies that's been able to accomplish this. It's interesting that Adam Sullivan, the CEO of Core Scientific, has been the only truthful one about HPC AI, saying that yes, there will be an HPC AI bubble. There will be a bubble that pops. I think he said in 2027. He's being upfront and truthful about that. Whereas these other companies that don't have customers, that don't have creditworthy customers or meaningful revenues, they're just ignoring it. So I actually really respect Adam Sullivan. I like what Core Scientific has accomplished. Over time, I think they're probably going to completely get rid of their mining operations because, HPC AI is working for them. I'm not completely against HPC AI. I'm against it, though, when management teams are selling a story to investors that just isn't true. And Core Scientific has seen success there. So I do like Core Scientific. I probably will never buy their stock, but if I was forced to buy an HPC AI play, it would be Core Scientific. Absolutely. Sana says, why would you buy a Cleanspark over Core Scientific? Because I believe that much more in Bitcoin and the ROI of the Bitcoin mining business model, much more than I do that of HPC AI. I think the HPC AI arms race is much more difficult, much more challenging, much more complicated. where you're already seeing companies like Iron purchasing Blackwell GPUs, and there's a new NVIDIA has sped up their GPU launch to basically every year they're launching a new GPU, and the Blackwell is 40 times, it has 40x the performance of the Hopper GPUs, which means that your Hopper GPUs are worth less money, which means that you can't rent them out for the same amount of money, which means that they depreciate faster, which means you always have to be at the cutting edge of HPC AI if you want credit-worthy tenants, because credit-worthy tenants, they're not going to settle for the lesser, the worst performing GPUs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I like Core Scientific, though, is because they're involved much more with co-location rather than owning the GPUs themselves, like a company like Iron does. They have CoreWeave that buys their GPU. Now, I don't necessarily love CoreWeave. I don't necessarily think they're a credit-worthy tenant. Yeah, NVIDIA backs them, but they too kind of have an unsustainable business, in my opinion, where they're purchasing GPUs and then they're borrowing more money by collateralizing those GPUs. And if those GPUs depreciate rapidly in value, well, their collateral shrinks on their debt, which can present problems in and of itself. So there's some risk there with CoreWeave, in my opinion. But yeah, I just believe in the Bitcoin mining play much more than the HPC AI. So that's why I would buy Cleanspark over Core Scientific. Do you think purchasing Bitcoin back will be done when it's below their all-in cost or when it's below their cash cost? I don't know. I don't think that's something they're really going to worry too much about. I think it's just going to happen depending on the market timing, depending on different options that they're utilizing at the time. They might get exercised. They might have to purchase some Bitcoin. I don't think they're just going to go out and buy spot Bitcoin necessarily. If Bitcoin drops below their all-in cost to mine or their cash cost to mine, I don't see that happening necessarily. Sana says, any predictions for Bitcoin and time frames for this and your reasoning? I don't really do a lot of predictions. The one prediction I'll make is I think Bitcoin is here to stay. I think it's going to continue to grow. I think it's going to continue to appreciate in value over time. The next great crash that we're going to have, in my opinion, is going to be a result of probably the monetary system in our country failing to some degree. And I think the markets agree with it. That's why markets have been piling into gold and they've been piling into Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin's a great hedge against what could go wrong in our economy today. But it's also an asset that, regardless of what happens, it should continue to appreciate in value over time. Mohammed says you're ignoring the comments about FLNC. I haven't seen any comments about FLNC. Sorry. I don't really have much to say about Fluence Energy. I think it's a great buy right now. People get confused and they think that just because the markets are selling everything off, they believe that they're buying bad companies or they're making a bad investment because the stock price of the individual company they own has fallen. No, it's not a lottery ticket. It's not a lottery ticket. You're buying a company, and if the markets want to sell off in fear, yeah, your individual stock picks are going to feel some pain, but it doesn't mean that operationally your company is failing or operationally your company's performing worse. I don't care what the markets do short term. It's just made the opportunity with Fluence Energy better. Now, we're going to have to keep an eye on their future earnings releases and whatnot. I'm still holding my shares. I want to buy more shares. Hopefully, I'll buy some leap call options on Fluence Energy. Tesla just came out with a very strong quarter for its energy business. I think the future for Fluence Energy is very bright. It's something we need. It's not a want for the economy and our energy infrastructure. It's a need. So massive tailwinds at the back of Fluence Energy. The battery energy storage system industry is set to grow 25-30% CAGR, whatever you want to call it. Geminite says, hello, what's going on? Sorry you missed a lot of the stream. You'll have to watch the replay when it's over. Says, you're very smart, but every pain point you have made against HPC and AI can be applied to Bitcoin mining with newer ASICs being introduced and depreciating at the same time with looks like your message was cut off maybe. Yes, you're exactly right, but the hardware payback period on ASICs is much faster than it is with GPUs. And when you're doing HPC AI, what are you producing? You're producing one-time revenues. and nothing beyond that. With Bitcoin mining, you're producing an asset that historically has appreciated in value over time. So that also has to be factored into your ROI with Bitcoin mining. I'd way rather be in the arms race for Bitcoin mining rigs and Bitcoin itself than in the arms race for GPUs that depreciate over time and my revenues are just static revenues and they don't have any chance to see any ROI above those revenues. So that's a little bit of a difference there. Anyways, we've been going for an hour and a half. It looks like I'm caught up on the chat. I'll leave this stream up for replay. A lot of really good stuff was talked about today. Thank you guys all for showing up. Great to talk to you guys. I'll be posting videos more consistently again on the YouTube channel starting Monday, so stay tuned for that. Hit the like button for me. If you just showed up, just rewind the stream. I'll leave it up for replay, and you'll see what we talked about in regards to Cleanspark and everything we talked about today. So with that, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Stay blessed. Keep 10 toes to the ground, your chin up.